Yeah, like that's and that it's I think like I feel like the way in the treatment that's kind of how it reads. Like it's abrupt when you're reading it in a story form, like the treatment that Uncle Bruce wrote it in. I feel like you digest it a little bit differently, but since movies and scripts are, as you know, are such a descriptive, like what exactly are we seeing in this moment kind of forum.
Yeah.
Like building that suspense, and then also just like I think I put a note in there too. I think like about when we had talked originally, like it came later, like the protest scene ended up coming later. But I think when we were talking about it, maybe I was just a little bit confused because we talked like about so much stuff, so many changes, but like that potentially that Jeff's death was like intercut with the protest scene. But then I wasn't sure. I think, yeah, like when we left off, like where there's the whole Bender scene, does the Bender happen later? Which like I like where the Bender happens now.
Okay. That was a note I was confused about because I wrote them all down on here, and then I like intercut with protests, and I was like confused about it, and I was like, wait a minute. I went back to it. I was like, wait a minute. Did I like the lineup? You know, it didn't line up.
No, and that's
we didn't really know where.
Like when I read later on, like I shouldn't like I was like, okay, yeah, the protests were in the right spot. But even still, like with adding more stuff with Lilith, like it might be maybe I don't know, like intercutting that with something else or just somehow building the suspense a little bit.
Right.
But anyway, that I like that note at the end.
For Jeff's death, like building suspense more for Jeff's death or adding more. Okay.
Yeah. And I thought it was kind of funny too. One of the notes that Mike had was he wanted to see more of Jeff doing investigative detective, like thriller type stuff. And I explained to him, you know, like the scene that he is investigating, like Jeff's investigating the lighting consoles and everything. Like I described to him that we originally had all of the, like we had like 3 scenes of that spread out. And it's like what Mike wanted, like Mike wanted to see that. But then I explained to him that when we did have those scenes in there, it was like we were saying almost pretty much seeing the exact same thing 3 times.
Yeah.
So condensing those all into one and something I thought might be kind of cool, like something we haven't really, like something Mike told me on FaceTime last night. Like what if somehow Jeff like goes into the basement of the dome? Like there's some sort of like really like into the like instead of just seeing visually like consoles with printer paper, you know, printouts and interesting lights and stuff, like what if there was another scene where he like went down underneath the dome and we see like the brain of the dome, like some sort of like supercomputer thing that's like built underneath the dome that could be a MacGuffin. Like it's not in the story as now. I don't think it has to be a lighting console or anything that necessarily we understand. And all, like especially with also the note that Mike was saying, like if Jeff was a little bit more kind of quirky and he was even saying like, yeah, of course Jack Black probably won't play Jeff, but being that he's an inspiration, like Jack Black kind of, you know, kind of a vibe, just like kind of crazy conspiracy guy going down, like going downstairs into this fucking like supercomputer, like the imagine, like I was thinking of is imagine like when the gladiator events would happen in the Colosseum in ancient Rome, and underneath the Colosseum there was like a whole level where they kept all the animals, and you know the doors would open up and the lions would come out, like there was a whole underground area to the Colosseum. So I was wondering if like even underneath the dome there's some sort of like crazy fucking computer shit, just to add more like what Mike was suggesting of that, like Jeff doing some investigative shit and being a little bit more suspicious about what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah. I like that. Because right now the craziest thing he sees is the Chris, you know, dancing with the baboon video, and then the 2 instances, the 2 fights at the concerts that happen at the exact same time. and then seeing the text celebrate the fact that that happened. Those are the craziest things that he sees, which is still pretty wild. But yeah, I see what he's saying. There could be something like where there's no denying that there's something else going on. Like all those other things could have been coincidences and, you know, just him being unfamiliar with it. But if he sees something like in a basement that there's like undeniably proof that there's something, and then maybe right after that he dies. So he has like no time to kind of share that information or even
it's like he's not like, maybe it's a completely what is it? He's not authorized to be down there, and he's somehow like bullshit, maybe not a whole other character, but like if somebody's leaving this restricted access zone and the door is closing and Jeff like puts his foot in the door and looks around and no one's looking and the door shuts and it just says like restricted access and he's going downstairs into the underbelly of the dome and there's just like all this really like it makes it's like the consoles themselves are just like the interface for this machine, like brain of the dome that's downstairs or something, just like
almost like Chronicle. I'm imagining when they go down in that hole.
Yes.
Like you don't really know what it is down there, but there's some real kind of some weird energy and colors and like what the fuck is this?
Yeah. And then maybe fucking Dr. Teen is down there. Like Jeff's like looking around and getting all suspicious. And then just like Dr. Teen, like a hand comes up behind him and grabs his shoulder. And it's like, and it's just Dr. Teen all by himself downstairs. Oh, what are you doing down here, Jeff? Mm-hmm. It's like, I was just wondering what all this is. And it's like, it's just the supercomputer for our consoles. Just like, so it could be like because the last time we see him with Dr. Teen, it's like he trusts Dr. Teen. But maybe like that could be the thing. It's like once he like we talked about with Arlington Road, like he's questioning Dr. Teen, and then Dr. Teen's like, oh no, we're just purveying our upward mobility and blah blah blah. And then Jeff ends up like going downstairs and sees this shit, and like Dr. Teen catches him, and it's just this really awkward moment, and Jeff like scurries the hell out of there. Yeah. I don't know.
And then he dies shortly after that. Yeah, I like that. I like that just for the visual sake. And then for him to know undeniably before he dies, he'll know that he was right, you know.
Yeah.
Instead of just overthinking stuff. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Just to add to it, and he could definitely use a little bit more quirk in him, or you know, it's just I was trying to err on not being too overly caricaturing of Jack Black type of characters. Right. So I think I was probably overcorrecting and keeping it too subtle maybe.
Well, like even in that first scene where he's talking to narrator Bob, which Mike loves, he like loves the narrator Bob scenes. Mm-hmm. It's like little narrator Bob documentary going on throughout the whole thing. And but he was saying like in that scene where Jeff is talking about the 5G and the satellites, I feel like it could just be about the satellites.
Yeah, I like that thought about Mayer that Mayer had. It was because 5G has such a strong association right now, and probably will. So if people think that he's one of those crazy people that are going to go shoot at 5G towers, he really loses a lot of credibility pretty quickly.
Yeah, because satellites, like even when we received that idea of the satellites, it's just kind of like a catch-all, like they're up there and what are they doing? And they got all this crazy shit with the satellites. They got these satellite launches coming up next week and they're not telling us what they are, man. I want to know what the hell's going on with the satellites, dude.
Yeah. And also, all right, how do you feel about this? I was watching I've been super deep into Batman, all the old film, not like the super old films, but like the 80s and 90s films, and then some of the cartoon movies. And I was watching one of the cartoon movies. I think it was Return of the Joker, from like 10 years ago, maybe.
The Killing Joke.
What's up?
Is it The Killing Joke?
No. I saw that one. I think it's Return of the Joker.
Okay.
It was still with what's his name doing the voice?
Mark Hamill.
Yeah, Mark Hamill. I think it was maybe one of his last movies doing the voice.
Mm-hmm.
But he used satellites, or somebody used satellites to like destroy the city or something like that, and it made me think of like maybe not like super intensely or like focused on, but how do you feel about having satellites involved in the Mandala event too? Even if it's not like shooting a laser beam, but even just like amongst all the quick cuts of the protests and the concert and the people and Lilith, like there's just a couple of shots of like a satellite, like either like turning on or like repositioning or showing that it's like it's doing something.
And it should say like it should have like the V5 agency like logo on the satellite, and then like right as the concert begins, like maybe Vincelli like gives some sort of order, or they're like when the like this in the visual description, like the scientists at the board like lower the faders, and then there's like a big red button or something, like, you know, one of those like ignite, like with the key that they open up and the thing opens up and they press a button, and then it just like cuts to the satellite, and the satellite like turns on and repositions, and like some solar arrays come out, and then just like some do 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 do. And then and it's like aiming right at like where Washington DC is.
Yeah. And just to add that in there, because then it's like satellites is the first thing that he talks about, and then there's that launch, and then I think it would just be fitting to have it again in the end.
Yeah, the V5 fucking satellite. Yeah, just visual, like, okay. Yeah, no, I like that.
Well, it just increases the scale too, and, you know, brings it to outside of Earth, you know.
Yeah. I like that.
Cool.
I like also his note about Lilith being more apprehensive about.
Yeah, I already changed that a little bit.
Because it makes total sense, just because she's ready to end her, you know, change her career, and like Vincelli shows up and just all of a sudden she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll okay, yeah, I don't have to do that, I'll just do this.
Yeah, I went into his pitch a little bit, like when I changed everything from Lily to Lilith, you know, I added his pitch in there about, you know, that idea of having that stage name, and then he tells about the Lilith story cool. A little bit, and then that kind of like brings her in a little bit, because he just the way he tells it, and it kind of excites her, you know, and kind of makes her think a little bit more. And he kind of cuts her off once or twice when she's like, well, but really, he's like, and then he keeps kind of like not letting her say no yet. And then, I mean, I agree. She's all of a sudden, you know, she's planning on basically taking a short-term retirement, and then this dude out of nowhere just is like, no retirement. She's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I get that. But yeah, I added more to that, and I added a little more fight about Jeff, a little more back and forth about her fighting for him, and Vincelli really being more adamant about, no, Jeff, we talked about it with my boss. And then, so there's a little bit more there, a little bit more take, a little more give, and then a little more convincing of her that it makes it seem more realistic that she actually might consider it, and which she obviously ultimately does.
Yeah.
What was another thing in there I was thinking about? Yeah, I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah, and I don't know if he wrote it in there. I forgot if he wrote it in there, but when we were talking on FaceTime, like that scene where Jeff and Lily have that joint, or they're just like hanging out before the president calls. Like he thought it might be cool if they were doing that up on the roof, like where the movie starts. Okay. And then like that whole conversation goes down, and like I don't know how much this would change it. This is just kind of like the main idea here is what like he wrote in, or what he thought would be good, and I think would be good too, is to have more scenes or moments where it's just her on her own, even though she's not on her own most of the time. If there's these little like punctuated moments here and there, like the idea of her designing the album artwork. Hey, get up there. No, get up there. Go up on the bed. Go up on the bed. Up on the bed. Up on the bed. Just having these little moments where she's not saying anything, and we just kind of see her on her own, kind of like responding to stuff.
I've added a couple of those moments in there already, where she's kind of like, just like very, very quick moments where she really does value those moments where she's alone and nobody's bothering her, and she's complete like that. That's when she feels free, you know, even if it's like in between a cigarette, or, you know, in between interviews or something like that. There's a couple more, and I could think about other places where I can add those, where she's just like has the briefest moment of like, oh, you know, like she is alone, but she's not. So like any 2 seconds of left being, not, asked to do something or paraded around or having something to do, she really takes advantage, or at least realizes that, oh, here's one of those moments that I have. I have, 5 seconds to be free, and then back into it.
Yes.
And then, yeah, I think you'll like the intercut that I added with Chris and her at the hotel to break up the Matt and the Jeff conversation outside the bar.
Yes. I'm just looking up I'm pulling up the notes that Mike had here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I added more conversation between between Chris and Lily, and then
when Jeff and Matt are talking at the bar.
Yeah. It goes back and forth twice, I think, intercutting between each other.
Cool.
And then that's part of that is actually she was working on the album cover.
Okay.
As well. That's kind of like an ongoing project that we see her do at least 2 or 3 times working on that. And then Chris asks her about it, and then I basically have her tell the story that you told me, the Paul's Dead conspiracy about the White Album. Because he's like, Chris is like, you haven't really ever explained what all the symbolism means on this album cover that you're working on. And then she tells an abbreviated version of Paul dying, and then them trying to reveal the truth through the album art, but then it didn't end up happening.
Yeah.
And then Chris is like, all right, so well, that's cool. What do you like? What's your truth, or what's your big secret that you're trying to reveal? And she's like, well, you'll have to figure it out.
Okay, that's cool. I like that.
So yeah, so it just brings more, adds more to that. And then there's at least one other time where she's off working on the painting. She's painting it. It'll be like a big canvas that she's painting. Not a massive canvas, but like it'll be set up in every hotel that she's in. She's something she's consistently working on, which, the mandala is fulfilling itself through the movie. So that's kind of like a clock showing you, how far along we are.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then one of those scenes, I still have to add this in there, will be her, I think, her doing the mandala while there are actual monks like making a mandala, or she's like there that'll be part of the process. Like she'll be in a room, like some sort of sacred room or thing set up where she's watching these however many monks do this mandala, and then she's using that space to help her finish her mandala as well. Yeah.
Even when I witnessed a mandala being made, like there was a tent that was set up, and they took like 4 days to make this mandala. I think it was maybe 6 hours, 7 hours each day. They just did full commitment prayer with the chanting and the whole thing. And then people would basically just come in, and there were chairs, and you could just sit and kind of observe them while they were doing this. So yeah, like I can see Lilith with her resources and everything having this like tent set up on her compound, like behind the scenes at the Dome in like the parking lots or whatever. Mm-hmm. Every time they do a show, like they move and they have this transporting mandala. So I guess, that's cool. Is like, that's her like little Zen room, like the meditation room that she can go in and be inspired. And yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Cool. And then Mayor, how do you feel? Has he made you rethink the relationship between the president and Lily? Like that was a point of his, kind of like, it seemed a little, I don't know, out of like, kind of didn't make sense, or it seemed like a sore thumb, or it just didn't really.
Well, yeah. So I talked with him last night about it on FaceTime. He made it clear that he liked the reveal. He liked it, this thing where you're talking to this guy, and then the Secret Service comes in, Mr. President, and the lights come, and then like you realize it's him. That's cool, but it just seemed like in his mind a little bit abrupt. So like what we were talking about was, let's say in that montage that happens in the beginning of the movie, like about like the narrator Bob like expose on the featurette on the fabric and the impact that the fabrics had. There could be like just a quick little montage of like seeing like on the editing, on the special, like photographs of the fabric playing in these places around the world. And like in one of the photographs that comes, you see the fabric at the White House with Lily like shaking hands with the president. Just like you just like see that in passing of just like planting the seed that she like the fabric's been at these, you know, has been, like not just plays shows, but is involved with activist type stuff, you know, and they've got like notoriety, or maybe they played a show at the White House, like, oh, and after and it wasn't until the fabric was invited to the White House to perform at the Rose Garden for all of America to see, like, and just a couple photos of the fabric and Lilith shaking hands with the president.
Okay.
But it would be like quick. And it would be photos, so it's not like you have enough time necessarily to process like, you know, what it is, so that when that scene comes where she's talking to the president and then we see the president, it's like, oh, okay, at least there was that subconscious like seed planted there, that it's not just like out of nowhere. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll throw it in there and see how that feels. That makes more sense. Yeah, because that'll build a little bridge. It is random. I mean, it is very random that she is, you know, that we made that connection, and you know, she's friends with the president. But I think it'll be cool if we can really sort it out, because it feels good now. But like, one of the notes from the screenplay contest was saying like that relationship doesn't really do much for the story except for reveal her backstory and then make you think that the president is the target more so, which is I think a huge point, though. I think it has value because of that, like, right, because we don't make it too obvious, but it's like, oh shit, the president, like, this is personal to her, and it just makes a lot of sense that it really does help us kind of trick the audience into thinking that he is the main target, with, you know, it kind of keeps the heat off of her the whole time. And I think if it can be read that way, then I think that has a lot of value.
Yeah. And planting that seed in the beginning, it serves more than just the purpose of establishing, even in a brief way, that she's close with the president, but also plants the seed about her wants and the lie that she tells herself, kind of like who she is and what she thinks she wants to change the world, and shows like, so the activism just plants a seed really early on as well, because it's suggested early on, but in that
it really helps to see it. Right?
See it, yeah.
Even if it's just a picture, I like that, just kind of like a little montage of photographs, like a classic Music Channel special, like, oh yeah, and I like that.
Yeah, behind the music. And the fabric was even, it's like, and the fabric's career really took off after their visit to the White House and blah, 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 blah. And then, like, shortly after that, she's talking to the president. So I think that, because I really like that scene where the way that we disclose that how close she is with the president, Mr. B, she calls him. It takes the very personal tragedy and wound that she has and associates it to the world at large, and also further demonstrates like why she might feel more than others, or why it's like, why are we like, a lot of people want to change the world, but like, we, through her connections, we see like, okay, well, it's not an unfounded like out of thing. Like, she actually can change the world, and has changed the world in a lot of ways. And then like, speaking of the president, I don't know if it's actually in the notes, but like the monologue scenes where the president is like, my fellow Americans, and gives this like whole spiel about what's going on as part of like that, like I think it's at the moment when they're in the limo on the way to the theater, and Lily's like watching on her phone after they get to New York, I guess it is. Is it New York? Yeah, DC. So when they get there, like, she's looking on her phone, and that's when she sees the president's speech. That's when we see the president not like laying in bed and talking, but that we could cut into that scene, have a little bit less dialogue, and kind of cut into it like at the part where let me see if I don't have the script on me at this point, but it basically, instead of cutting at the very beginning where he's like, my fellow Americans, and he gives us a little introduction, if we just cut in like sort of maybe a couple of beats into that conversation, Mike was suggesting that maybe we don't need to really hear all of that.
Okay.
Which I can agree with.
Yeah.
You know, just to save a little bit more real estate on the page for other stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, those speeches can get kind of long, so I understand synthesizing them. What else was it?
Yeah,
oh, and then Barnhart. So I like late last night. I was like, oh fuck! Like Lily and Barnhart never meet in the script. So then I went and found a spot where Vincelli like introduces Barnhart on page like 28, I think, like really quickly after a show. But I just kind of felt like it needed to be in there. But then Mayer pointing out that he doesn't like Barnhart kind of exposing himself at the end. And I actually just saw, that was the first time I saw like a couple of weeks ago where Fifth Element is one of the only movies where the protagonist and the antagonist never actually meet.
Yeah,
you
right.
never really think about it.
True.
But and so I liked that, and that kind of made me want to get rid of the scene that I added last night where they meet, because I think having Barnhart at the end kind of tell Lilith what's going on, not tell her, but I think him talking in that scene, kind of revealing himself. I think I like that it's in there, and I think that'd be okay if that was the first time they met. Because I felt kind of weird about it. I was like, they don't meet, then all of a sudden he's there at the end, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm like, I think that'd be interesting if she had no idea who this guy was, or like that was the first time they were, I don't know. I think it works. And then I changed a little bit of the dialogue around with Barnhart to hopefully clarify him telling her something where she realizes that she's going to die and not the president, which is what we were talking about. Because you said it's clear in our minds, but it's not really clear on the page.
Right.
So when she says something to the president, the audience doesn't know. It's like, why wouldn't she say you're about to get killed? You know, like we want the audience to at least on some level be like, what? You know, not upset with what's going on, but like, wait, why isn't she? You know, not like she should be, but like, oh, there's something else going on here and it's okay.
Yeah, but also being like, what is it? Like, what's going on? Like, like the audience be thinking, like, why isn't she saying anything?
Yeah.
But it's like, if it's on the paper, on the page, it's like she's having this fucking internal moment where it's like she shouldn't, it's like there is no, if you really pay attention to her internal struggle there, it's like, okay, she realizes it's like finally the one person in the world that knows it's going to happen is the one person that, you know,
is happening too,
that you wouldn't, that ultimately when it happens, it's still a surprise.
Yeah.
Because it's not like we resolved it or make it clear, like, oh, it's me.
Yeah. Right.
But also,
that's kind of how it was when your uncle wrote it. She has a moment where she like looks, you know, she looks there, this happens, and then she has the moment like, oh, everyone's looking at me, it's about me, you know, that was
so it's still moment in the story, it's just we're kind of adjusting it a little bit before she goes on stage.
Well, because of the whole thing that we're
like, if she knew, like, why wouldn't she fucking say anything?
Exactly. I gotta run. So we had to get out, we had to get around that, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think we did. And then, I added a line like Barnhart saying, like, you really, like, when he's saying, you know, you're selfish and we can, you know, she's like, you can't get away with this. You know, you can't kill the president. You can't kill somebody you can't kill.
Yeah.
And then Barnhart says, like, the president, like, he says it almost, like, sarcastically, but not in a way, hopefully, that's, like, it's like, oh, the president, like, kind of almost, like, saying it back to her, like, oh, you think it's about him? And then he's like, oh, you don't get it, do you? And then there's a pause in there, and then he's like, yeah, we've already gotten away with it. So she says you can't get away with it.
It's like we already did.
Yeah. So just to try to like plant it with the audience, she's like, you can't kill the president. You'll never get away with it. And then he like smirks and is like, the president. and then he says, "You don't get it, do you?" And then there's like another beat, and he like looks at her. So then, if you're the audience and you're really kind of observant, you're like, he laughed at the thought that she thought it was the president.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the president. And then he's like, "You don't get you." And then if you're the audience, to be like, "Wait a minute." And then, but then to kind of cover that up, he goes, "We've already gotten away with it." So to like kind of not really confirm or deny anything.
And then there are those scenes earlier on where Vincelli's talking to narrator Bob about the European tour.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, we got big plans. Like, oh, we need her going forward. So it's like we already plan to see. Like, okay, so it's already very much suggested that, you know, this show is going to go on. Like, why would they kill her if they're going to be doing a tour in Europe? You know,
right?
Like,
Exactly.
shouldn't even occur. Something about Barnhart, I think we talked about a little bit on the phone the other day, that I like a way of introducing him in a way that, because I agree, I like that scene where he says all that shit to her at the end, and it's like we never really hear him talk at length other than that scene. And it happens a lot at movies, but it's like, who is Barnhart? Just some ominous guy, like some kind of ambiguous Illuminati person controlling the things? Or like, I like the idea of Barnhart like being the CEO of the V5 agency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like it. It's like he and Vincelli is his like henchman. Like if like Barnhart is the Emperor, whereas Darth Vader is Vincelli, which I think we've talked about before. So it's like if Barnhart, like even when we see Barnhart at first in the rafters, kind of with the ominous tone and the hat and everything, it's like, who the fuck is this guy? But there could be, even in those like narrator Bob, you know, news things, there could be just a mention. Like I keep thinking of that guy from Contact.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, want to take a ride, this like billionaire guy that's like really elusive and shit. And like, oh, he's kind of in the shadows the whole time. And it's like, just imagine Jeff Bezos. It's like, yeah, Jeff Bezos runs the V5 organization. It's like, yeah, he's around here somewhere. And like, not that that'd have to be a dialogue or anything, but it's like Jeff Bezos is around somewhere. And then it's like, finally at the very end, Jeff Bezos walks in and he's like, listen here, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. I one of my big notes up here, you can kind of see it, but it just says more Barnhart. Like, we really could use more Barnhart, and that was even before we even talked about that. So, yeah, I'm with that. I'll see how and when I can work that in without it seeming too forced, or, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. He needs to be in there a little bit more, have a little more FaceTime, and instead of because learning a lot about villains recently. It's like, you want to know the villain's motivation. If they're just like, he's bad, he's pure evil, he wants just bad things to happen, it's like, why? It doesn't matter, he's pure evil. You know, it's like, it's lazy, and you don't really feel as scared. It's like,
no. And like with all the stuff we talked about with Thanos as a resonator,
exactly.
Like,
you should be so much more interesting, and just makes everything more interesting when the bad guy has a personality, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, if he was the CEO of the V5 agency, like the owner of the V5 agency or whatever, just like, it gives him more of like a real world purpose, because it's like, at this point right now, it's like sort of our original understanding of the Illuminati. Like, you never know who the real Illuminati is. They're always like in the shadows somewhere. You know, like, we always think the president or the people in the intelligence organizations are running the show, but really there's all these people that are influencing them, and the Illuminati stays like in the shadows the whole time. And Barnhart kind of like is that right now. But I think if he had like an actual, like, you know, like people were aware of who Barnhart was.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like if people were aware that he was like the CEO of this company, and like we don't really ever see him, and it's like he's the money guy. So it's like when he shows up at the end and fucking says all that shit, it's like, oh my God, this goes all the way to the top.
Right. Well, yeah, and then he was in the Pentagon, like this. He's friends with, you know, Secretary of whatever.
Craig Staples and
Colonel something. Yeah. So it goes way up high, all the way into the sky. Yeah. Okay. All right. What else we got here?
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Afghanistan and pulling the troops out in Somalia and Kenya. I mean, we really kind of changed from global unrest to mostly just civil unrest.
Yeah, it's like there's the flu, there is protesting, and
Shootings.
yeah, there's shootings, and like if yeah, I would just make it um I don't know, like I'm thinking like Afghanistan and Iraq, just because those are, common
Well, right.
understood things,
We still have troops there, and that was one of the big things. He's like, he's going to start bringing troops home, which Hollis didn't like, and that was part of the reason for that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
him
The
lacking
Indian
respect.
Somalia thing doesn't really, other than that, serve just like there's
Right.
more shit going on in the world. Oh, just add more shit. And it's like, which
Yeah.
in a way, like, makes sense, like the way we've designed it to be this far. But for simplicity's sake, like, yeah, if we already established one thing, we should probably just stick with it.
Yeah, agreed. And that I remember that was an Uncle Bruce thing. Like one of those governments was working with the CIA or something like that, and then we kind of like we expounded upon that at some point where there was like an interview with the president of Somalia, and he was like, "I want to thank the CIA for all of these weapons." Or
Yeah.
so that was just that was a, as you called it, about something else. That was like a hangover from earlier drafts.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I think we'll just
Hangover from earlier drafts.
we'll change the Somalia and Kenya. We'll either change it all to Afghanistan or Iraq, or we'll just make it stuff that's happening within the United States.
Yeah.
Jeff's death, yeah, more and more of a build-up. Well, I'm still torn between that because I do like
What?
him dying really quickly. Like, I know we talked about the scene before, or him stumbling into the basement, but I do kind of like he's not really threatened. There's not really anything where we really know his life is in danger. Like, he's not threatened, except he sees Barnhart one time, but like Vincelli doesn't come up and say, "Hey, keep your paws clean, stop looking around." I think the fact that none of that happens, and then all of a sudden he's just like, he's dead. I think that's kind of like the shock
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's okay.
I agree. I
All
think
right.
it's just a matter of the description text of like him, like we should see, like it should be more descriptive of like Jeff climbs up a rickety ladder, and and the wire,
right.
and the everything is so polished down below, but the further up he goes into the rafters, there's more wires all over the place, and it's just he's having to like climb over shit, and like and he's trying not to touch certain wires, and then like there's no platform, and he has to like I don't know, just building the suspense, not like someone's watching him and like, oh shit, just kind of like just it's instead of just like, I think it's like 3 sentences right now, like he climbs up there, the thing is, and he dies. It's like it should be like a little bit more descriptive. Not, but I agree with you, like not there. I like that it there's no like moment where he did see all these things.
Yeah, you just quickly learn how the stakes. Before this, we're like, oh, everything's kind of like, well, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. When this happens, it's like, yeah, shit's happening. Like their stakes are high.
Yeah, it's like Jeff reach, like it's like the light, like light 33 is like just out of his reach, and it's just like him having to like reach over at the light, and then like right as he reaches over it, there's a spark, and then
yeah, I'll
like
play
that.
with that. Yeah, I'll play with that.
Let's see, was it?
And then he says, page 65, Lilith, quote unquote, "This is messed up. I think we need some sort of description or dialogue of Vincelli's reaction to this," but I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. Do you have the script?
I have, yeah. Well, I've done like 10 things since I sent you that one, so the pages are all over the place.
I'm wondering, is that the scene where like they're in the limo and?
It could be, because right now, page 65 from the script that I sent you, which is I think the exact same one I sent him, 65 is in the middle of the Pentagon scene. So
it's gotta be then.
So it's probably her in the car, and I changed that around because that's originally where he tells her she's not doing the artwork anymore, but I changed that to later.
Yeah.
This is where I changed it actually in the limo. He asks her how it's coming along, because I don't know if we mentioned it before. He's like, "How's that artwork? We don't know that she's doing it, so maybe I can even introduce that earlier." as well. Like, oh, and she tells Jeff, like, oh, and they're letting me do the album artwork or something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get these Buddhist monks and blah blah. It's gonna be
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
get Buddhist monks.
And then Vincelli. So maybe, yeah, oh yeah. So when she says that, it's probably her reacting to Vincelli saying that she can't do the album art anymore. So that's probably what that was. So that's not even.
I think so, which makes sense
sorry.
because like we were already on it before. Like it's like, oh, there should be a little bit more to this. It's like, yeah,
Yeah. And then in that scene, he also plants the seed, like, hey, you better get that done because we need to get it approved before it goes to the next step. And then she's like, why wouldn't my artwork be approved? And he kind of like dismisses her. So it kind of already plants that seed, like, this is not 100% sure. He's like, it's got to go through the proper channels, and we got to make sure it passes all the tests.
Just keep
like,
working on it. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Right. And then she's like, wait, what? There's a possibility that you're not going to accept this? And he's just like, all right, we're here we go.
I just imagine like a scene like in that tent, like that, the mandala tent that they build for the monks to come in and like do the mandala, and she's in there and it's very holy in there with the smudge burning and the ding, it's like all chaos sounds. When you walk inside this tent, it's just like really like quiet, and all you can hear is the chanting as they're and Lilith's in there, and Vincelli like walks up to the tent and like opens up the thing and like goes to step in, but it's almost like a vampire walking into a church. He just oh, I can't go in here. And then like signals for Lilith to like come out, and she's like, just come in here, and he's like, no, you come out here, I can't go in there. and then that maybe there could be that, I don't know if that
I like that idea.
So I can't step foot inside
he
of a ceremony like that. You would just incinerate.
Or even have like a Buddhist or like a monk be like, nah, dude, you can't.
Yeah.
Having a monk be like, no, man.
yeah. No, like Vincelli can walk through anybody. Like the CO is hard for Vincelli, except there's the monk just stands in his way and gives him a hard look, just mad dogs him, and he's just like, all right.
Yeah. The monk's like, I know who you are. I can see who you are. You can't come in here.
You're not the fucking CEO. Lying bastard.
And then I'm glad that Mayer said he liked, like, I'm glad that we really kind of updated that comes to the end. Like you said, the last 30 pages, you're just kind of like, we wanted it to get to. They're kind of page turners. So you're like, all right, here we go. We get the momentum. And so I like that he didn't really have any comments on that last, the whole third act, essentially.
Yeah, the third act.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, the Mandala act. Yeah, I like that.
Let me think if there's anything else.
And there was this, in the scene with like before Barnhart and Vincelli and all those guys come in at the end, before like Barnhart kills Chris. Is there? I think we talked about just having some more.
Right. Yeah. I was struggling with that last night.
Get up there.
I didn't really know what to do there. Like I don't know if it was being lazy, but I also kind of like the idea that it was similar to Jeff's death, where it was just like, oh, they have this moment alone, and they're like, oh my gosh, and they're trying to figure stuff out, and then as soon as they're trying to figure stuff out, they don't have time to breathe. It's like they're already being descended upon. Like there's no time to take a breath. There's no time to take any sort of action.
I don't even know if it's dialogue as much as it's just I would like to see a little bit more description.
Okay.
Of like Lilith hearing, like we maybe we can kind of hear a little bit of what the recording is like, because of what Matt sent her, but like we see Lilith hearing this, and then she just goes into full on like panic mode, like, oh my god, they're gonna kill, and she just starts like pacing and just like basically have like, where's my notebook, I got some fucking, it's like, and Chris is like, calm down, what's going on? And she's just like hysterical, like they're gonna kill him, because like with just a little bit more description of Lilith having like a fucking freak out and Chris just being like, what's going on, baby, what's going on? I mean, that's kind of in there, but just like a little bit more description of like Lilith, because that's the thing. Like it's just little moments like that with a little bit more description. I think that's all.
I agree. There's at least a few of those even besides the describing like the show, I've gone in and done a fair amount more of every time there's a Liquid Crystal show. I've done added a lot more descriptions in there. Cool. And like I said, added a lot of descriptors from those Laser Bob shows, those Laser Floyd articles.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
So that's cool. And then mixed in more with just like what Lilith is doing in particular. Like one time there's going to be a long, like it'll kind of show her being able to play guitar really well, and it'll be like kind of a jam session almost, like where she's chopping it up with the rest of the band. Like that'll be kind of one of the Liquid Crystal scenes, so you could see that she's actually talented. And then another one will be where she's singing, but then she kind of starts dancing a lot. Like, so it'll just like one's performing, one's singing, and one's dancing. And so they're all kind of different.
Yeah.
But she's doing things, specific things. And then the band's reacting to her. And then the lasers are doing their own thing.
Yeah. That's cool. Cause the only other time we really see any description of her talent as a musician is in that very opening scene from The Fabric where she's playing the glockenspiel and all that stuff.
Right, yeah.
So like, yeah, I like that, to have some moments later on with Liquid Crystal where we, like you said, jamming out, all that. That's cool. I like that.
And then also during one of like the montages where they're they're upgrading the show, and Jeff's investigating and stuff like that, I added like Lilith and the band are like really rehearse really intensely, and they kind of go over songs. So there could be a whole scene of them like updating their set list, or just going over the music and showing really, really how specific, like everyone is a perfectionist in the band, and they they're kind of really methodical.
Yes.
And so it shows them how intense they are about practicing, and Lily and just all of that stuff, because we didn't really see them. It's usually just like, they practice in the background, but I think it'd be better to be a little bit more.
Oh yeah. Like we're not background. Did you add in a scene or like a part in there somewhere? Like, cause Vincelli, part of the pitch to her is to like, well, Lily needs a break, but what about if you didn't have to be Lily? You could just be Lilith, like when they make the Lilith thing in the beginning. Mm-hmm. If there's later on at some point, maybe it's like after, I think I wrote it in a note, like it's after Jeff dies and Vincelli's like, you have to go out there, like you have to go on the show. And like I can see him calling her Lilith this, Lilith. And she's like, my name isn't fucking Lilith. It's Lily. And he's just like, and he could be like, whoa, okay. All right. Like not, and at that moment, he doesn't have to necessarily be like, no, you are Lilith. He doesn't have to be overbearing. Like I think that's the thing. It's like we really want to build up to that, him being overbearing. Like once he cancels the album artwork, that's when Vincelli starts being way more like fuck you, like fuck me, fuck you kind of a vibe. And but I like that because there's that part in the beginning where it's like you're Lily turning into Lilith, and then she assumes the role of Lilith and then has the Jeff thing happen. Then she's like, my name isn't fucking Lilith, it's Lily. But then she kind of goes back into it. And then the protests happen. She goes on the bender, and then she's out, and like they're like, wait a minute, aren't you Lilith? And then she's just like, I used to be. It's just like those 3 times of her and her name and her identity, and it makes it not just silly, like a funny little homage to Tom Hardy, but also
it's an homage to bad writing, Alex. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Not just to Tom Hardy.
From Bane. Not Bane. Venom. Yeah, homage to bad writing. Yeah.
It's an homage to Independence Day 2.
Yeah. And Venom.
But yeah, I did add that in there, and it is right after Jeff died. He tells her, he keeps being like Lilith, trying to get her attention after she's kind of in shock after she learns about Jeff, and that's when she snaps and she's like, it's not my fucking name. But then on the flip side of that, how it's kind of introduced is when her and Jeff originally come to the Cape, the launch site, when they meet everybody, the first time they're there, Vincelli approaches them instead of Lucas now, and he's like, hey, Lily. And then she's the one who's like, hey, I'm here now. Consider this the beginning. Might as well start calling me Lilith. And he's like, and he really likes that because he's like,
he's like, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Now I got her.
Yeah. So he
thinks it's her idea.
Yeah, right. Exactly. She thinks it's her idea. So he loves that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's great. I like that a lot.
And then from then on, everybody who meets her calls her Lilith, but obviously Jeff and the president still call her Lily or Lil or something like that.
Yeah.
And then when Matt meets her, she doesn't really have the chance to introduce herself, so she doesn't go either way, because Jeff interrupts them. She's like, "Hey, you're Matt, right? You're like the producer, blah blah blah." And he's like, yeah, I am. And then that's when Jeff kind of comes and is like, "Hey, Lilith, I got to talk to you about something real quick." So he's never introduced to her as Lilith, even though that's how he would know her.
Yeah.
And then when when Matt and Jeff are talking and kind of bonding,
he brings up Melissa.
He brings up Melissa, but then he also talks about, when Jeff is telling the story, he calls her Lily. That's how he refers to her because that's her name. And then when Matt asks a question, he's like, "So when Lilith," or he's like conflicted. He's like, "Or when Lily," and then another thing to kind of solidify their bond, Jeff is just like, "Just call her Lily." So then the rest of the movie, after Jeff dies, Matt keeps calling her Lily still to kind of carry.
And he's the only one that's doing that.
And he's the only one that's doing it. Yes, to kind of carry on the tradition of Jeff.
I like that.
Okay, cool.
I like that.
And then at the end, when Vincelli's, or not the end, but like after Jeff, she's like, "That's not my fucking name," she has that.
Yeah.
But I like that idea because right now he still kind of keeps on her even after she says that. I like that, him being like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, Lily, we just need to get you out there,
And then I could even see Vincelli, like, because he's being hard on her, like there's like basically standing on the sidelines of the show. The show's about to begin. And he's like, "You gotta do it." And then when she snaps, and he's like, "Oh shit, okay." And then I could see him taking a step back for a second, like Matt Damon being like, "All right, I'm sorry," like goes into character.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm under a lot of stress right now, but nowhere near as much stress as you are. Listen, Lily, if you want to cancel this show, I totally understand. You don't have to do this. And then there could be a moment where they just look at each other and she's contemplating it. And then Vincelli's like, "All right, no worry about it." And then he just basically like gets on the walkie-talkie and is like, "All right, let's power down the energon cubes in the basement," or whatever the fuck he says. And then Lilith is like, no, let me fucking do this.
I like
and then again, like Vincelli is like,
That's again, yeah.
But that. I could even see Vincelli doing something like that in the beginning as well, when she's apprehensive about it and he's pushing her on it. Like, he could say something to the effect of, I think we talked about this too. Like, he could say something like, "Listen, I came out here because I didn't just come out here to see your show. I honestly came out here to scout you because I think you'd be perfect for this. But clearly, I understand if you don't want to do it, and it's okay. I had to try. And then that might motivate her to think like, okay, maybe I will do it. Okay, but if I'm going to do it, Jeff has to come." It's just like this whole thing where like Vincelli does this reverse psychology on her, making it be like, "Oh, well, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it if you don't want to." And then more than just that one time, like she ends up doing what he wants her to do without realizing it.
I like that.
And it just gives Vincelli that much more plausibility as maybe he's a good guy, but then, clearly he's not.
And he's you just see how good he is at manipulating.
Yeah, because it's convincing.
Yeah.
Especially when he shows like the, his AA card or his AA coin or whatever, like all these things is just like, "Listen, I really think," he's like, makes a compelling case. And then she's apprehensive about it. But since they just meet, he's just like, "All right, I'll be honest. Like, it was a shot in the dark. I know what you're going through. I really think you'd be great for this, but I totally understand if you don't want to do this." So, not like a great, "It's been nice to know you," and walks away thing.
Yeah.
But just like gives him her card and is like, "Listen, he gives her the card early, but maybe this is like instead of when they first meet and gives her the card, it makes more sense. Like when he's like, oh, it's just like, well, here's my card. If you change your mind, if there's anything I can do to help you, or if you want to reach out, just reach out to me. Puts it completely in her hands, simulates that free choice. And then she looks at the card, and maybe as he's like walking away, that's when she's like, wait a minute. And then she brings up about Jeff, and she's like, listen.
Well, let's just pretend for a second that maybe I do. Let's humor that. To even think about it, Jeff has to come with
Jeff has to be there. And then he comes up and he's like, who's Jeff? No, like Jeff from the band? Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like, he could be doubtful about it. Just because I came here with you, we have very limited resources. I don't know if I can make that work. And then she'll be like, well, then if you don't have him, if he's not there, then you don't have me. And then that's when they have this moment where they just look at each other, and he's like, no, a good agent just being like, all right, let me make a phone call. And then we see him go and talk to Barnhart, come back and does some sort of like Matt Damon move. He doesn't have to say anything. I wrote it in the notes there. It's sort of like he just kind of closed the phone and walks down the hall. The next thing we see is with Jeff. I feel like if we turn around and we see the look on Matt Damon's face, just being like, giving a smile or a nod or something.
Yeah, that's how it was. He doesn't need to say anything because we don't really know where the conversation would go after that. Like she doesn't say yes right then.
Right.
We don't know when she says yes. We don't know how much time there is in between the last show and then the first time that we see them get on the plane and get in the limo. So, that could have been, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again,
that's more believable too, instead of her just being like giving up on her break, so willy-nilly by her own choice. Now we can see that she's being manipulated into kind of, taking this step instead of just being like, oh, I'm canceling all my plans because this random person. Now it seems way more believable, I think, if we can get him manipulating her and making her, make up her own mind.
Yeah, and have that, it's like that inciting concept, really. It's like, well, you know what? Lily doesn't have to do it. Lilith can do it. Like you said, like writing and telling the story of Lilith. It's like that's the inciting concept. It's like, let's create this alter ego that you can basically hide behind, like wear this mask and be this person. Hey.
Is that you?
No, yeah, it's my dog. It's Isabel.
Cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. And then, the fact that it happens again after Jeff dies and he kind of tricks her into performing there again, kind of against her will, just adds a lot to that. That's why he's good at his job, man. That's why he's in the position. He's the best in the world at that.
Yeah.
And he can write a hell of a screenplay.
What's that?
And he can write a hell of a screenplay with his buddy from Southie or wherever the fuck they're from.
Yeah, right, dude. I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, I watched Argo with my parents when I was down in Oceanside.
Nice.
Just being like, man, Ben Affleck, like, yeah, sure. It's like, who directed Good Will
Hunting? What's his name? That one guy who only did like art films. He did Elephant and.
Hey, Google. Who directed Good Will Hunting?
No, don't tell me. I want to remember.
Hey, Google, stop. Hey, Google, stop.
It's the guy who did Last Days for Kurt Cobain, and he did Elephant. Good Will Hunting was the most like linear, regular Hollywood movie I think he's ever done.
Oh.
He's a very art house guy. What is his name? Fuck it. You can look it up if you want.
We'll let it marinate.
All right, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's just like when we meet Vincelli, he's an instant ally, very believable, very trusting, very helpful, very understanding. And then
what a great guy.
he's in the complete opposite at the end.
Yeah, I don't think I had any more.
Trying to think like if what other notes I had.
Yeah, I don't. Those were the only things I had. I felt pretty good after last night as well.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah, and there were just like a couple of. I'm sure you saw the notes I took. There were a few like grammatical things or like.
Yep. Yeah.
Those missing that.
What's that fucking director's name?
Yeah, I don't know.
Damn it.
Yeah, even if it's like I'm Edward Vincelli of the V5 agency.
Yeah.
Like the V5 agency, you mean like James Barnard's agency? Isn't he the fucking devil? Oh, he's a really nice guy when you get to know him. You'll meet him someday. Okay, cool. Yeah, someday you'll meet him. He'll fucking kill your boyfriend. Crush all your dreams and make you feel like shit.
Yeah.
It's
good at that. Yeah.
Let's see, I think. Yeah, and then just like those little moments with Lilith and just seeing her being an artist, not even really any dialogue, just seeing her so focused on her art. Her art is what makes her such an activist. Oh, Mike told me there was something else too, like in terms of like looking at Lilith like John Lennon. I'm trying to think like, what did he say? Just like her I mean, she's protesting and stuff. Like she's protesting this issue. Just I'm trying to think like what was it? It's like if he was saying like Lilith should be more. Oh, I remember. Like one of Mike was saying was like Lilith should seem more of like an outsider in terms of like as a musician, as an activist, the type of person that she's beloved to be is a little bit more of an outsider. And the way I'm kind of imagining too, it kind of mirrors a little bit like what we put in with President Bacon. President Bacon is sort of an outsider, and everyone looks at him like he's like, the fucking liberal guy. Like, things would be a lot easier if he wasn't fucking here. He's trying to fuck everything up. We're at the Pentagon trying to kill everybody, and he's trying to stop us. Like, like that type of attitude. I mean, it's in there, but like one of the things Mike was saying is if there was just a little bit more description of Lilith in terms of like her activism and seeing like how maybe a scene before the one where we see like Kendrick Lamar and Ariana Grande and Tom York commenting on Lilith, like maybe somewhere in there, a scene. This is what he was saying, like a scene of just a description of her. I don't know how to implement what he was suggesting, but do you understand? Do you know what I mean?
Like show her more of an outcast within the celebrity community. You're saying like she's a little
just
bit
like like maybe not even an outcast, just like an outside, like
outsider,
like just kind of the way we've always imagined her. She's just like beloved by everybody.
Yeah.
But like, what if she wasn't like beloved by
everyone?
And she's like a controversial person in her own right. I don't know how, like, if that maybe could be planted a little bit just more in that intro about the fabric when we're seeing that montage of like them at the White House and everything. It's like for, I don't know if this would be a line in there, but it's like for President Bacon to invite the fabric to perform at the White House was a pretty ballsy fucking thing to do. Like I could see that not just being like Coldplay shows up at the Obama rally to sing like, and they were all yellow. It's like you didn't invite like a and
Yeah.
Coldplay. You invited the Fabric. Wow, like that's
Yeah.
says a lot. And
Statement.
I don't know if there was just
Yeah.
those are just little things that might be kind of suggested or hinted along to build up to like even I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
And they were all yellow. No, it wasn't that one. It was more like the Apple commercial Coldplay
Yeah,
song.
They wouldn't sing Yellow.
No, they would sing that one that's like
I used to rule the world.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
the dice. Like yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, but they invited the Fabric to come, so it's like, oh shit, this is like, man, fucking President Bacon's got my vote.
It's like imagine Bill Clinton inviting Rage Against the Machine to the White House.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, exactly. That's exactly. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Bill Clinton sitting over there being like,
yeah.
like
Hillary's like stone faced, like, oh no.
If I were president, I wouldn't invite them. I'll get my chance one day. They'll all see.
It'll be my turn.
It'll be my turn. Yeah, look at him. Just Bill Clinton invited Rage Against the Machine. That's like essentially what I'm imagining. President Bacon inviting the Fabric. Like, wow. Okay, that was a pretty breakthrough moment for like American history and music right there. Yeah, like that could be part of the thing that's going on in that montage where we see the pictures. I don't know, like just to give a little like that's like that could be like a historic event that put the Fabric on a map in the way that made them arguably one of the best bands of the last 5 years.
Right. And that's very easy to do with visuals, classic just newspaper headlines, and pictures and
red carpet.
Yeah. Definitely.
Press conference. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I like those visuals.
Fuck you, I won't do it. All right, everybody, I gotta introduce you. The man you've all been waiting to see. This is Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, Rage Against the Machine. Oh.
These guys really hate machines. Oh gosh.
Oh, these guys hate machines. I like this great story about the Industrial Revolution. Oh, I'm not on anymore. Who are these band? Who's this band again? Where's Monica?
She's here.
Oh, she's down. She's under the desk.
She's under the deck. Yeah. Below deck.
Below deck. She's under the dome.
Under the dome.
Yeah, that's the scene. Yeah, interior under the dome.
Yeah.
The belly of the beast. Just like some it's like that console we see with all the weird like neon lights and shit. Like, because even in like the story as it is, like the lights, the wires are going somewhere. It's just like eventually like we see like that wire, like it's like where it leads to, like down into the fucking basement where there's just like, like from, like you said, from Chronicle, some crazy shit down there. It's just like Jeff is just like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. And then it's just like a horror moment, like turns around and like Dr. Teen is just standing there. Hi, Jeff. What are you doing down here? Oh, nothing. Yeah, just like I can see Jeff just not even having. He's just like so freaked out he can't even like ask what the hell's going on. He's like, yeah, I thought the bathroom was down here, and just Dr. Teen just standing there just like staring at him. Because Dr. Teen's been pretty nice to him the whole time, but this is like a moment where Dr. Teen's giving him this look, like just like sitting like a robot, just give him like a little smile. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. I'll just leave the way I came. All right, I'll later. All right. And just Dr. T, and it's just like a long hallway, like goes down. It's like under the dome, a huge dome. So like Jeff makes it all the way down to this thing, and then like Dr. Teen is there, and just like Jeff is like frantically running back and leaves Dr. Teen just standing there, And like Dr. Teen like just looks over his shoulder as Jeff is like scurrying away, like with all these crazy lights and crystals and like laser machines and shit downstairs. It's just Dr. Teen standing in his fucking laboratory.
Yeah, I like that.
That would be like, yeah, I could see like.
Yeah, that throws a whole new element into it, and yeah, expands the scope again, and then also plants a little bit of like like as the audience, you're Jeff, you're like, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck is this?
What was that? Yeah, what's going on there? It gives you something else to think about.
That's like Halloween 3. Like in Halloween 3, when the dude finds that room with all the scientists and there's the fucking block from Stonehenge, and then all of a sudden, basically Barnhart's there, and he's just like, "Oh, yes, you wouldn't believe how we got this here. Mm-hmm. How'd you get this here? Oh, you would not believe it." Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fucking probably won't. We're gonna kill all the children. It's all craft, do you see? It's all craft. All right. It made me feel good, man. Like reading this draft and then also hearing Mike's notes and how happy he was. Like, especially the fact that the last act reads in a way that just like we wanted it to be. So yeah. Good job. Good job putting that down, man. Really. Thank you.
We're not done yet, but hopefully, yeah, I'm not hopefully. Definitely after tonight, it will be done. And yeah, I'm planning on sending it in tonight, but maybe during the day tomorrow I'll read it when, after the sun's up, just to get it.
Definitely send it to me tonight too. If you, okay, I might read it tonight. I'm kind of excited.
Cool, man. I'm sure I'll have a question for you or something at some point tonight. Yeah. I'm gonna eat right now and then I'll get cracking on it. And yeah, so it'll take me a couple hours, but
yeah, take your time.
I'll have to run some stuff by you, but then I'll let you know, man. But yeah, this is good. This is all good stuff. It really feels like it's kind of filling everything in, and the little gaps and overlooks are kind of are have been addressed. So I'll just sprinkle them in there. All right. Yeah.
Love you, man.
Love you too. Thanks for thanks for helping give me these perspectives and ideas. So
absolutely,
we'll get it done, man.
Hit me up whenever, man.
Will do.
All right.
Talk to you soon. Love you, buddy.
See you.